Hey everybody, a bit of a different intro to this week's video because yesterday we recorded the news and I got it all edited for you, and then last night we received the tragic news that we lost two incredibly important members of the Star Wars family in actor James Earl Jones and artist John Cassaday. Now, James Earl Jones, many of you will know as the voice of Darth Vader. He famously completed his work for A New Hope in a single day, giving his voice to Vader and creating one of the most iconic sounding villains of all time. But of course, in addition to Star Wars, which he was involved in all the way through Obi-Wan in 2022, he created so many characters. I mean, Mufasa in The Lion King, he was in Field of Dreams, and of course it wasn't just film, right? He was an incredibly accomplished theater actor doing almost every big role in Shakespeare, the works of August Wilson, to the point where he actually had the James Earl Jones Theater named for him on Broadway, one of only two black theater makers to have that honor, and he is one of the 27 EGOT members of all time, so to call his life prolific is almost an understatement. And at the age of 93, he passed last night, and he will be missed dearly by everyone in Star Wars. George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy and the rest of Lucasfilm put out a statement about his impact that was really, really beautiful, and of course we'll link to that down below. And then right after, we lost John Cassaday. Now, if that name is not as familiar to you, John Cassaday was the artist that brought Star Wars back to Marvel in 2015 alongside writer Jason Aaron. He was the cover artist and did the interiors for the first arc, and he basically set the tone for what Star Wars would be. I mean, this was the big swing to bring them back into canon, and even outside his Star Wars work, which was incredible. I've known him for years because of his Marvel work, like on Astonishing X-Men with Joss Whedon, which I still think is some of the best X-Men art there's ever been. Tragically, he was only 52. So in one fell swoop, we lost two huge icons, and our thoughts go out to their families and friends, of course, and we thank them for everything that they did for Star Wars while they were here. We were really lucky to have them both in our world. So we have more to talk about this week, but of course, it wouldn't be right to talk about Star Wars news this week without acknowledging the loss of those two. So the families of James and John, you're in our thoughts. And now, on to the rest of the news. Welcome back to the Youtini Update, your weekly look at all things Star Wars news. My name is Eric, and today we are looking at a bunch of stuff. We had the Star Wars Outlaws directors talking about sales and the future of the game. A Star Wars legend joins the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There's a new Emmy winner in town, and we end the show with a little bit of a personal note. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't, and let's jump right into it. Star Wars Outlaws has been out for a couple weeks now, and while a lot of fans are having a great time, myself included, sales figures aren't quite what Ubisoft may have expected. According to reports, the physical sales have caused Ubisoft stock to drop to its lowest point since around 2015, and the initial UK sales were reportedly 55% lower than Jedi Survivor. Now, a helpful caveat to all of that was that these sales figures were all about the physical sales that didn't introduce the digital numbers or Ubisoft Plus, which is how I know a lot of us play games in 2024. So hopefully when all those numbers come back, Outlaws may have a little bit of a better time and cause those investors to put their money back into the company. Now, Massive did respond to some of this, with director Julian Garrity addressing the Metacritic scores, saying that they were, quote, a little bit disappointing, but nonetheless, he does believe that Outlaws can be a game that millions of people will play for years and years to come. In addition to the season pass, which has announced the first two expansions for the game, Garrity did say that there are some patches that'll be coming up, addressing things like some of the stealth missions, which even he says are a bit too hard at times. All of this basically admitting that the game is going to have support, something that Star Wars gamers do want with everything from Battlefront to Survivor and beyond. So in the years to come, maybe we'll get more DLCs, maybe we'll just get quality of life enhancements, but regardless, these sales don't mean that Outlaws is going anywhere for quite some time. Now in Hollywood, the Walk of Fame has hosted plenty of Star Wars legends in the past, like Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and of course the late great Carrie Fisher. But this Thursday, we are getting a new one with Ewan McGregor. That's right, Obi-Wan Kenobi himself will be joining the fabled Hollywood Road, with Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker, speaking on behalf of his friend. Now naturally, this is a huge deal for prequel kids like myself who grew up with Ewan. Ewan, who decided that he wanted to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, to step in the shoes of Alec Guinness and create this amazing iconic role. even though the critics may not have agreed at the time. But on the heels of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and him getting back into the fans' good graces by going to a bunch of fan conventions, this seems like an incredibly fitting honor for one of the most impactful characters of our childhood. Congrats, Ewan, and I gotta say, I cannot wait for that Hayden speech. There's gonna be tissues all around. And speaking of honors and awards, this past weekend the Creative Arts Emmys were held, and Ahsoka became the latest Star Wars project to receive one. Costume designer Shauna Terpsick received her first ever Emmy for Outstanding Sci-Fi and Fantasy Costume Design. Now, tragically, Terpsick did pass away last October, and this was her first Emmy of all time, with her previously being nominated for The Mandalorian and The Book of Boba Fett. So it is a bittersweet moment for her work to finally be recognized for her work on Ahsoka. And I mean, come on, just look at these costumes. There's no wonder that she finally got the recognition that she deserves, and we can only hope that her designs live on forever. Congratulations, Shauna. You were incredible. Now, this week, I want to add in a quick personal note. Now, as many of you may know, if you've been around Youtini for a long time, I have an incredible corgi, and his name is Morden. He's 14 years old, and he has been around Youtini as long as I have. I've had him for 11 years. And this past weekend, we were playing Outlaws together, and it got a little more important. Because last week, I took Morden to the vet, and we got that news that no pet parent wants to hear, that unfortunately, our time is going to end together, with his last day being this coming Friday. So, over the weekend, we did what we've always done for years, and we played some video games. We played Outlaws, and I knew that Outlaws was going to be the last game that I ever played with him, but I didn't know that Outlaws was going to be a game about pet ownership. Because if you haven't played Outlaws much, K-Vess and Nyx are probably the best duo in the history of Star Wars pets. Throughout the game, Kay is always checking in on Nyx. She's making sure he's okay. She's making sure he's safe. She's thanking him for everything. And as I sat there next to Morden, knowing that it was our last game together, I could not have been more emotionally affected by the game. And I went to Twitter to say as much, and I gotta say a huge thank you to the Outlaws team for being so supportive. In particular, Navid Kavari and Nikki Foy, who worked on the game, reached out with their love for Morden and basically just said thank you and reinforced the fact that they put all the love of their dogs into the game. So, for all of you that have followed us for a while and have seen Morden on live streams back in the day, just know that he had a great last weekend with me, with Outlaws. We have the last couple days together, and I am intending to come back to you guys next week. We'll see how I'm doing. But if you have a Nyx of your own, if you have a Morden that's sitting next to you right now, give him a little pet, give him a little scratch. Because whether you've been together for a month or 11 years, it's always the best day of your life with them, no matter how much time you got left. So, thanks for indulging me. And that'll do it for this week. A lot of different stories this week, obviously a little more personal than we usually get on here. But I hope that you had a great time catching up on Star Wars. So much bittersweet news this week. We had highest awards, we had disappointing sales, we had the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and we had me saying goodbye to my best friend. So some weeks are just like this. You know, some weeks are going to have the full breadth of human experience within this fandom, but we're all in it together. And next week, we'll see what comes up. But until then, thanks for hanging around, thanks for your support, and as always, may the Force be with you.